Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the second biggest podcast in the Pacific Northwest, just behind those pesky Sasquatch Hunters. We're almost there. This is, of course, the Business Over Beer podcast. I'm your co-host, Ben Surratt. Alongside me is, of course, the man of the hour, the terror of power. Some people call him the Space Cowboy. Some people used to call him Stitches. Some people used to call him Man Bun. But we call him Spartacus. Mr. Jonathan Kaler, happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday, Ben. I have led you here. I am excited. Business Over Beer Phase 2. We got out into the world. We shared a beer today. It was lovely. If I have 103 temperature tomorrow, I know that I have to blame the people in these boxes. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But it really felt like a little semblance of normal to be out in the world and enjoying a beer with friends. It was fantastic. So I'm sorry that the new normal is right beside us, still blocked out on Zoom, but that's okay.
Yeah.
One day at a time, one step at a time. And speaking of being blocked out on Zoom, we have got the gangsta of Hazel Deli is the gift that keeps on giving, Jason Knope. Welcome to Business Over Beer, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good. Been waiting for this day because I haven't had any beer all week. And I'm thirsty, and let's get into it.
Yeah, man, this is going to be rough, and I've already got the giggles.
I know.
This is the problem with Zoom, is that when I give my introduction, I don't have to look at anybody, but now I see our guest is over there chuckling in the corner, and so now I'm stuck with the giggles. So who is our guest down there in the corner, Knope?
Man, we got Don Elliott of Gravitate, Vancouver, Washington. How you doing
Welcome
tonight?
to the program.
Hey guys, glad to be hanging out with the gangster of Hazeldale. That's legit.
That's right.
And just to clarify, he is not a gangster of Hazeldale. He's the gangsta.
Yeah. That's respect, man. Respect.
Don, thank you so much for joining us. In all seriousness, thanks for enjoying a beer with us at Ben's Bottle Shop earlier. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to getting into your business. So let's start there. We ask all of our guests to give a 50,000-foot view of your business. So why don't you start there and kind of let us know what you're into.
Okay, so in marketing, we've got traditional big marketing, advertising, radio shows, TV ads, all that jazz, and they have the digital marketing sphere, and arguably that's the big one these days. So we look at the digital marketing ecosystem. So we don't go into traditional advertising. We work with people to do that. We're specialized. So we are in digital marketing in the digital ecosystem. So if you've got something that you're trying to convey online or sell online, if you have a brand that has to be online, which is generally the rule for brands now, then that ecosystem we cover. So we look at the entire thing from search engine optimization, so like how do you show up when you're Googling something, to social media and social media advertising, to, of course, websites, and ultimately producing content and pushing content out So our deal with our clients is own the digital ecosystem for them and figure out how to generate business results from there.
Awesome. And your agency is Gravitate, which is a downtown Vancouver, Washington-based business. And you're the owner of that agency. And how long have you owned Gravitate?
A little over 3 months.
Excellent. But this is not your first stint with that organization. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So Gravitate was actually founded in 1999. So it's been around for a long time for a digital agency. The previous owners bought my previous agency in 2012. So Elliott Design was my second agency that I had started as an owner. And we were around eight-ish people or so, and then met with Gravitate. We were actually looking for just a new spot, and they had bought this building downtown that was really nice, an old historic building, and we were looking at leasing a space from them below, the smaller agency kind of coming in. But we began having discussions and realized like this might actually be a good merger of sorts, but when one company's 40 people and the other's 8, it's more of an acquisition than a merger.
Sure.
Yep.
It's more of a devouring than a merger. So that happened in 2012. I took over to help kind of turn the company around. It was actually, although it was profitable, the company itself was very unhealthy at the time. And that's part of why the merger, part of why they wanted for that to happen. So I took over right towards the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, to kind of turn the ship around. And that was a long haul. That was not an easy feat, but we did it. And towards the very end of 2015, technically the very beginning of 2016, we'd gotten the company to a point where it was very healthy, very profitable. And the other 2 owners and I just didn't really have the same vision as far as where to go. So it seemed like the right time to part ways. So I went on to do consulting for other creative agencies. So I've been a business owner since the late 90s and an agency owner since 2003. And I frankly needed a break from employees and just kind of the scene. I just needed a little break. So from 2016 up until really end of last year, I focused on actually just consulting for other creative agencies, going in there and helping them solve the problems that I've been solving. Unfortunately on one end, fortunate for me, but unfortunate for the people who had to endure it and that kind of jazz. They dropped from 45-ish people down to 16 at the lowest in the course of maybe 2 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Gravitate did.
Yeah. And it had to do with a series of poor choices, largely tied to who they replaced, right? So who they put in executive positions, who was in leadership, who was the president in particular. So they made a series of unfortunate choices and the business kind of tanked, did a tailspin, dropped all the way down to 16. They promoted a guy named Colton Tidwell, who's our current CEO. He was the president before I bought it, and I promoted him to CEO so he can keep doing my job. But so they finally promoted him. He was a guy that I had actually hired to work for me, and he's run his own businesses, super sharp guy, that crazy competent. So they're finally like, we don't know what else to do. Fine, put Colton in place. Colton, and there's a group of other people, about 5 folks, that were kind of like, okay, well, let's make this what we can make it. And all those people were in the same team that were part of my team when I was running the company. And so they actually reverted back to a lot of the things that they were doing before when we were in our heyday. And then they evolved it and they made it better and they improved on it. And so they turned it around before I ever came back into the picture and built it back up to around 20, 25 people or so, which is actually what made it possible for me to buy the company in the first place, because no banks, no SBA is getting involved with a company that's tanking. Rightfully so. I actually don't want tax dollars going into companies that are failing if we can avoid it. So I understood. But so they got it to a position where it was able to be acquired, and we began the dialogue in July of 2019. And then the acquisition and the formal transition happened on March 2nd. So back
Good
in the
timing.
saddle, but it's also a new company. Only about half the staff worked for me before, and yeah, there I'm at.
Awesome, man.
Well, I don't want to go any further than March 2nd because, Ben, you look thirsty.
Jonathan, I am thirsty.
Excellent. Well, Don, this is the Business Over Beer podcast. This is the beer portion of the program. We ask all of our guests to bring a beer to the program to share. And we have already talked about the fact that we did our beer swaps. This is a little anticlimactic, but I don't care. This is the shtick. I'm sticking to it. Have you brought a beer for us to share, Don Elliott?
I have brought to you the Coral Motel.
Da-da!
This is a Comet and Laurel Pale Ale, which I have no idea what that means, actually. This is a dry hop pale ale.
Oh,
And I've been kind of going for light lately. I've been kind of a light kick. And so
Little-
this just looks real nice.
The Comet and the Laurel are the hops. And it looks like it's a hazy pale. So it should be juicy and bright. Oh, yeah.
that's such a great sound. And that sound, unlike Canope, never gets old. I love you,
Canope,
man.
you don't-
You're getting into the game now.
I
too,
love
huh?
you, man. I love you, man.
You don't sound old to me yet, Cano.
Thank you.
We just
Appreciate
met today, but
that. Tomorrow, definitely.
yeah, it might go downhill. But right now we're good.
That's pretty.
Canope, you might be the oldest one in the group, like usual, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yep.
pretty.
Looks great. Prost.
Prost.
Prost, guys. Oh, that's good.
Mm.
Oh, dude, that's crushable.
Oh, I like that. See, that's what I want, like hoppy, but light. Like this is sharp and light and citrusy. It gets.
Yeah, I like the bitterness on the backside. It's light bodied though. There's not a lot of it doesn't have a lot of oomph. It doesn't give you that real juicy kick off the front. But it's there. I mean,
It's there, yeah.
Is it grapefruity? Is that
Mm-mm.
what is that on that I smell? It's subtle. The fruit is really subtle.
I don't want to say like pepper is the wrong word, but like a green pepper, something like that.
Like a bell pepper.
Yeah.
Bell pepper, something earthy, and got it.
Oh, that's good. Good choice, Don.
I'm gonna
That's
pick that.
really
I
good.
like the second sip a lot more than the first. It's opening up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this needs to sit open for a minute, period.
Well, while we're waiting for it, Don, when did you decide you were done with the 9 to 5? When you were done, you were like, I'm done. I want to start. I have this entrepreneurial itch. I have this small business itch. When was that aha moment for you?
So that would have been 93, then legally 94. So, or no, legally 95 maybe.
Sounds like there might be a whole other story here.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Are you giving us your age right now?
I'm about to, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was
I hope you might be
implying
off the
it
hook. You
before.
might have.
Yeah, you might be off
You
the
might
hook,
have just
brother.
played an older card there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So I haven't wanted to work for anyone or have a real job since I had my first job, which was at 14 years old. So I started working at 14. I got my work permit as soon as I could and started working. Part of what I was doing was driving and parking cars, which was also cool at 14.
Where at?
Actually, it's called Almar Tool. over by Costco. They're not by Costco anymore. They're actually over out in Camas. They've been around for a long time.
Canope, you know them?
Yeah, my uncle and the owner,
You
one
said
of the
Almar?
Almar, Almar. They do like drill bit, like really high-end drill bits for like military and Boeing and stuff like that. Different tool stuff, CNC grinding, like down to microns and all this jazz. And he and my uncle grew up together. One of the two brothers that owned it, one of them grew up with my uncle, and so I was 14, and my family's always been big about like shut up, quit whining, and work. And then there was money tied to it, so I was like, yeah, that works for me. So started cleaning machinery with Simple Green, cleaning the oil out and all that, and then parking cars so that they'd have events, and I would be like the valet, which was kind of funny. It was nice cars. But even at that point, I was like, yeah, I don't want to work for anybody. I can do this. Then at 16, I got my first business license, and had a buddy of mine. And back then you could buy magazines. There was two in particular where at the back of the magazine is computer magazines. And at the back, there's a whole index of hardware people. So you could buy RAM and motherboards and all these things. And so back then you could build a computer for $300 and sell it for $2,000. You can't do that now. You can't build a computer for much cheaper, if at all cheaper, than unless you're doing something really big and fancy. But otherwise, like, you're not doing that anymore. But at the time, we were 16 and buy a computer. We were buying it. We'd do it on spec. And I was all of a sudden a 16-year-old poor kid making, $3,000-$4,000 a month by building computers, doing this thing. We had a business license called Veritech, V-E-R-A. I can't remember if it's T-E-K or T-E-C-H. I don't know. Tech. Yeah, so I've never been down with doing the thing.
So what year was that, though? Was that 93, 94?
Yeah, it was right around there. Because it was, it was early high school. So, yeah, probably 93, maybe, 94.
Canope, you're still the oldest.
I'm the oldest still.
Yep,
yeah.
Still the oldest. And Ben, he said Veritech, not Veriflex, all right? Different deal. While you were off doing your skateboarding,
on a
Veriflex. He was making $4,000 a month with Veritech. Just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, sorry, man. I went nerd right out the gate. Like
that had to be weird. I mean, I was told by a mentor years ago before we started. My wife and I had our own business, that you're going to see that your friends are going to disappear. They're going to first flood because you have money, but then you're going to start to separate yourself from them because your focus is going to be your path of entrepreneurship. So at 16, I couldn't imagine the peer pressure that you must have had making that money. I mean, did you have that or not really?
Well, here's the thing. I went to 4 different high schools.
What?
So, yeah. I went to Park Rose, Sandy, Jefferson, and Mountain View in Vancouver for about a year. I did a stint in Vancouver.
We like shanking people, or what's the deal?
Juking and jiving, bro. Juking and jiving. My mom's actually a retired math teacher. Both my parents are actually math teachers. And so part of it was just that transition. Part of it, believe it or not, was getting into like the inner city gang activity, and Mom going, okay, we're getting out of here. You're going to Sandy where I teach. And so I did this very cultural jump from inner city Portland to Sandy, Oregon in 92, maybe 93.
So just to clarify, so was she taking you out of an area of gang, or were you involved in some of that activity?
Both. Yeah.
Both?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was, this would have been 8th grade at the beginning. So obviously I rolled deep, you can tell. Okay.
I was gonna say he's got the beatnik glasses, you know, and the beat
Chandelier in the back.
I mean,
He's a
you
Timbers fan. He's a Timbers fan.
but he looks like he should be hanging out at Haight Ashbury in you know, in the mid '60s. He certainly doesn't seem like he'd be rolling with the gangs in inner city Portland. So
He threw
You
it
gotta
up.
evolve, man. Evolve or die.
Continue. I'm sorry, Don.
Okay. Well, I mean, so back then, this was like the gang era, right? Like this was early 90s. This was gangster rap was at its height. Portland had a reputation because there was a need for getting name recognition in gangs. So there was a higher propensity of random violence in Portland at the time that a lot of people didn't realize. And part of what was happening was a lot of recruitment, and the recruitment would come to middle schools. And you would work, you know, it's the old gangsters working with the young ones. And this all comes down to Street Fighter 2, frankly. So my gang activity comes down to Street Fighter 2 on 122nd Shaver. It's been a rough life. So there was a 7-Eleven on 122nd by Kmart.
Street Fighter 2. What are you?
he's gonna tell it. Everybody,
He's at
let him
7-Eleven.
keep going.
Oh yeah. The irony, right? So yeah, 7-Eleven right by Kmart on 122nd, circa 92, maybe at this point, maybe I don't know. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 there, and you put your quarters up on the thing, and if you keep winning, other people got to get up there. Well,
Oh my goodness! Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that. I
Right?
remember that.
yeah, well, fights would break out over this on a semi-regular basis. Like at least once a week, there'd be a fight there. I mean, you would have a group of people around there. Well, I'm just going to say it. Give me Chun-Li and I'll kick your fucking ass. That's just the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you got your Hadouken and you got that combo and people think you can't beat it. Guess what? Chun-Li with the fierce kick, you can cut through a whole bunch of stuff. So the gang didn't realize that yet.
They're pissed, but they were pissed about
know.
there being 30 quarters lined up.
Yeah. They saw I was rolling deep, and I knew Kung Fu clearly. So we've got lines coming up. This is happening day after day for a few weeks. And finally there was a guy that just got so upset at me once, and he wanted to fight, and there was a little bit of a tussle, and some of the RCB guys were there, and they were Street Fighter players too, but they were kind of on my side. They were kind of like, yeah, Don, like he's legit, it's cool. And so then this asshole started, you know, because he was really upset, and so a fight broke out. So we hung out for about a year.
You really?
I'm dead serious. I got jumped at one point by a rival group. Got within about a week of actually doing a formal beat-in. Like, no one, when you meet me, I mean, clearly, I mean, like, you already covered it. Obviously, this doesn't jive with my motif. But that's the way I grew up. So that's Park Rose.
Wow.
They're recruiting at video game competitions nowadays, I hear.
Only violent video games, though. You gotta, you gotta know your personas that you're targeting.
Dude.
Man.
So was that your peer group then? Were the gangs and the gang affiliation people like at 7-Eleven? I mean, that was your.
I know it sounds real hardcore. Trust me, if I continued, it would have been hardcore. But I didn't go through with it.
I don't mean to make light of it, but it's your story, man. I'm just repeating it. So you had your stint with the gangs and stuff. So did being an entrepreneur help you get out of that situation, or was it the moving that helped you get out of it, or a combination of all of it?
Wow, that's a great question. the moving probably was the biggest deal. So, so I got shot at.
Oh my goodness, dude!
Of course.
As that's been known to happen when you're in a gang.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm like, I know how to kick. Well, I don't actually, but
I know how to control.
Somebody was shooting and he was going
I
like
know how to
this.
control avatars and make them kick.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, and I didn't actually tell my mom about what happened until about a year or two later. She was teaching math at Sandy High School, and school and me did not jive for a whole lot of reasons, and so I already was, even outside of the games, I was already a little bit off the rails. And so for her, it was like, well, there's an opportunity, there's whatever the laws are in Portland or Oregon that they could, because of her teaching at Sandy, I could be transferred to Sandy despite it being way out in a totally different area. So it's so funny to say this now because it just sounds funny now, but the day I was shot at, it was a truck, guys on the back, I was on my bike. I got shot at, I jumped off the bike, I was running between the houses, and then finally was able to work my way back home. Obviously just like scared as hell. My parents were teachers and they weren't home yet. And so when my mom came home and she could see I was shaken up, but she was used to me being a little shaken up. I was that kid. I was kind of emotional and intense. So it wasn't that big a deal to her. Like, it wasn't that unusual, but I didn't want to tell her about the whole thing. And so I just said, yeah, I'm kind of over it. I'm done with this. Like, I want something new. Let's go to Sandy. And I told her later, no, actually, this is because I was marked at the end of last year. This was summer, and I was attempted to be jumped once. A friend of mine, not a friend, a friend of a friend of mine's happened to be driving by, and he shot in the air, and they ran, and I got in the car, and then the next day I'm riding my bike, and then a truck comes up, and they start shooting, and I dive off, and so I get home, and I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with Sandy. Let's check this out.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah, so there's that part. It was just the moving, honestly, made a big difference. The other part is just I've never, and this I think is the entrepreneurial thing, is I'd just rather be the one calling the shots. I would rather be the one in control of my life. And I'd rather not be a yes man, and I'd rather be the one, for better or for worse. I've made a million mistakes, but I'd rather be the one making the mistakes than the one having to deal with the other person's mistakes. And it's always been that way for me.
Yep.
So, have you ever had a quote unquote real job?
I worked at Thriftway for a few months in my junior year, I want to say. It might have been it.
Did you go to college?
Yes. So
I feel a butt coming though.
yes. Okay, so all right.
But
well, here's another one for you guys.
there was no Street Fighter. That's when we got to Mortal Kombat.
Exactly. Exactly.
Get over here.
Yeah. So I technically started college at 16 full time. Because in Vancouver you have a program. It sounds more impressive than it is. In Vancouver you have a program called, or Washington you have a program called Running Start, and that's where you,
yep.
Yeah. And so I was able to test at a level where I could go full time, and so I went full time. I got my first apartment when I was 17, and moved out and had my first apartment. So all that stuff sounds great. Fast forward 20 plus years. Never actually finished high school, never actually finished college. I literally don't even have a GED. I technically finished high school as far as I know, like credits wise, but I haven't actually, and part of me doesn't even want to do this now. Reached out to Jefferson to see if I ever got the diploma because I never saw it. And apparently I don't have it, but I guess maybe there's a way for me to submit something. I don't know. It's bragging rights now. Like getting a high school diploma now is not, it's actually cooler not having one at this point in my career, I think. I don't know. But, and then went to college and got up to about a junior at PSU when I was around 18. But then opportunities opened up for me in North Portland, just career and business wise, and I just ran with it and it just went. So there was never really a reason to go back to school. Now I love teaching. I love learning. I'm a consummate student, but school, especially back then, was not geared for people like me. And so it just wasn't the right mix for me. Now there's been times, like I'm saying, where like, maybe I should go back and actually investigate and see, like, there's probably some thing I need to fill out. Now I have a high school diploma. It's probably some weird legal thing like that. I don't know. But there's a part of me that's kind of like, nah, not now. Now it's bragging, right?
I'm glad you went there with that because I understand what you're talking about. I was never in high school. I was called lazy. I was called irresponsible. I was called, yeah. And they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. However, those same people now are like, you own your own business? Like, how does this guy own his own business? So when you say bragging rights, I know what you mean. It's like, yeah, I did it. And I didn't have to go to college. Well, in your case, you didn't have to finish high school. You didn't have to finish your GED. And you were still able to control your own destiny when it comes to your time, your fiscal means, and your life. You're taking your life in your own hands. And I love that part. I love those stories because I was never meant for college, but it was so pushed on us back then. I don't want to put you on the spot like this, but
go for it.
Do you feel that the education system isn't geared for entrepreneurship? What's the problem with telling kids, hey, look, I can tell you do not belong here with this program. Let's get you on this path.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so that's actually kind of a tough one for me to answer.
That's why I didn't want to ask it, but they forced me to ask it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to force you.
Oh, Canope, are you still here?
Yeah, that was my fault. My bad. I sent him a message and I said, hey, ask this question.
Oh.
I'm forcing you, Ben. Ask this question.
All right.
It's my bad.
So, I don't know. There's kind of two elements to that to me. One is you're talking about entrepreneurship, but the other part for me is what do you do with certain types of kids? I had the privilege in 2016 of going to South by Southwest EDU. So South by Southwest, a lot of people don't know the week before the music part is the EDU part. So there's an education part of it. And you have students and teachers and, you know, all aspects of education coming in and talking about like how to evolve education and be. And so seeing what's possible with education, there was so many things that I saw that I was like, if that had been around when I was a kid, I'm not complaining about my life by any stretch of the means, but it would have been different. It would have been dramatically different because there's the entrepreneur side, but I kind of associate that with independence and drive. And whether it becomes entrepreneurship or something else, it's really just at its core independence and drive to me. And especially if you combine that with a very active mind, or you know, a certain degree of an intelligence of active mind, it's easy to be bored. It's easy to never be challenged. So like one of the things that I struggled with when I got out into the real world as an 18-year-old, so I had a business and I was making money on all this stuff, but then I got in the real world and had to, you know, and had my own, I guess it was 17, I had my own apartment and bills and things like that. Came to realize very quickly that while I'm, you know, capable and have a certain intellect and whatever, that I had never really been challenged. I'd never really been pushed. Everything came fairly easy in school, except for commitment. Like if it was boring, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to show up. It was tedious, like it's a waste of my time. So my grades weren't the great, but as far as being challenged, I never was really challenged. I was never really pushed. And I had my own drive, but that, but frankly, your own drive takes you so far. Your own drive plus being pushed by other people is a whole nother world. And I think an education system, teaching how to start businesses and stuff, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right way to go or not. I don't know how far to go into that or what's the right way to teach that or not. But teaching independent thinking, free thinking, and rewarding drive, to me, an education system that can adjust to that. If you've got a kid who, and I'm not necessarily referring to myself right now, but if you've got a brilliant kid who's got a lot of energy and a lot of drive, and you're going to put him through 7 classes a day, and 6.5 of those classes, he understands everything in that class in the first 10 minutes. The bulk of his entire education is spent trying to figure out something else to do. And not being challenged. And that's why, you know, we behave poorly. We get involved in games. We do all these other things instead of stimulating and working the brain. And that's where I feel like school, yes, to me, I think schools need to be pushing entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship in the core of what entrepreneurship means to me, which is drive and independence. Owning a business, running a business, to me is a detail of drive and independence. For me, owning a business is because it's the mechanism for me to have the freedom and independence that I want, and that realizes the results of the drive that I have. Aside from that, I don't really care about being a business owner. It just facilitates that path for me. So,
Dude, that's well put.
That's a really interesting perspective. I think that we haven't gotten from any other of the entrepreneurs that we've talked about. But that makes a lot of sense, because we do think about entrepreneurship as, you know, we kind of put it on a pedestal, or we talk about it as a path, where you're talking about it more as a result of a specific type of personality.
yeah.
So that's just an interesting thing to think about. There's not a question there. Just, that's a really cool point. That's going to make me think.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ben, is it time?
That time.
You're flashing me the
The gangs.
the mystery sign.
Did you guys already get through that first one?
No, I didn't. But
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute.
Well, I didn't pour the whole thing.
oh, you were smart, dude.
You kidding me? I just downed the whole thing.
Well, that's a you problem, Canope.
That's
It
right.
is now.
Right.
Talking about drive.
I told you guys I was thirsty.
So, Don, every episode, my lovely wife, Angela, picks out a beer for not only us, but our guests. And usually, Kaylor, how do you put it?
They are high octane.
High octane. And
They'll
so
get you there fast.
that's her mantra is, if you're going to drink a beer, why not have a beer that gets you there fast? And I get it. So the past couple of episodes, she's felt that she has fallen off. So when she came in, this past week from Ben's. She gave us the cackle and the imaginary mustache twist.
No.
Kaler and Canope, can you both impersonate that? Yes, just like that.
No delay, just right away.
That's just the mustache twist though, not the cackle, because her cackle is like
Oh my goodness.
Wicked Witch of the West stuff, man.
It is. It's crazy.
So I'm nervous.
So there are rules. There are rules. So the rule is we don't look at it. You don't open it. Don't look at it. You just pop the top open, pour it, and we try to figure out what it is. So if with your best non-looking,
Yeah,
and I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
So we don't look at the cap. Got it.
See, now this is bringing me back. This almost feels like some old English days. Your wife brought some 211 high gravity.
Little St. Ides. We can play some Edward 40 hands.
Yes.
Dude.
Come on, Ben, get her done. My guess is this is not a pale ale.
She's looking right now.
Oh my god.
She is right here peering.
Oh, it's a
Right when I popped the cap off, I was like, "Oh,
Oh my
it's a chocolate
goodness.
stout. It's got to be. Oh, it
Not
smells.
ready for
It
this.
smells delicious.
oh."
I'm
Oh
pouring
yeah,
that
that's
much.
just chocolate stout.
Woo!
Oh my goodness. Why would you do this
And
to
coffee.
us? Oh, look at her. Look at her. She's like,
She
pour me a
cackling.
glass.
Making an appearance.
Oh, sure. Ben gets a little. He gets a little help.
There you go.
But Prost, guys.
Bro.
Well,
Woo!
Well, it's barrel aged. It's
yeah.
barrel aged. There's vanilla in this, though.
Yeah.
There's vanilla.
Chocolate in there, or is that?
That dark chocolate is just.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, dude.
It's almost maple.
Is that
It
maple
is-
or vanilla? That's vanilla.
Definitely vanilla. Definitely vanilla. Maybe maple.
Yeah,
Definitely
you're right. There is maple. You're right. Oh, that's good.
That's really good. I'm not actually a huge chocolate stout or chocolate porter fan, or a sweet stout or sweet porter, but actually I really like this.
All right. You want to reveal it, Don?
There we go.
That's it. That's what I thought. I knew it.
Oh, it's
The
ballast point.
And it's barrel aged.
Like Christmas.
Yeah. Barrel aged.
Yeah, it had to be barrel aged.
Coffee
2018.
You
Coffee and
guys
vanilla.
nailed it, man. Barrel aged imperial porter with coffee and vanilla,
Oh,
aged in bourbon and rye barrels.
You guys look at this 12% by what is this?
what did you say?
12%.
And
I'm
Yeah,
gonna need
well,
a
ask-
driver.
Please
I'm gonna
ask
need
me
a
the
driver to get
important
back to my
questions.
house.
Yeah. Ask me the important questions now, please.
I think we already did. Thank you, Angela.
My pleasure.
yeah, her pleasure.
Just
I'm
for
sure
fun.
it was.
Yeah.
Just for fun, I'm gonna finish this one.
I'm glad I downed a taco before I jumped on this thing.
I'm glad I got.
You got your cheesy poofs there?
No, they're little goldfish crackers. I took
No.
them for the kids. Gotta have something.
What is the biggest misconception about being a small business owner?
Wow. I've never been asked that.
Welcome
I
to
feel like I
Business Over
should've-
Beer.
Yeah, let me drink to that.
That
Okay, you know what? Actually, let me quote something that was said to me that I say when we talked about high school education. I actually do teach at colleges, not like guest classes and short courses and stuff. And so when I do teach, one of the things that someone said to me, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago or something about being an entrepreneur, because everyone says, so when I'm working with students in the creative space, whether it's designers or developers or marketers, there's this idea of at some point I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to work for whoever I want to, and I'm going to make my own hours. I'm going to work when I want to, where I want to, and all this jazz. And the truth is about being a small business owner is, yes, 100%. You can work any of the hours you want to. You have full control of your schedule. You can fire any client you want to any day of the week. Pick any 70 hours of the week you want to work, and you get to work those.
Yep.
So it was like, yeah, you get to pick your hours, but it's a hell of a lot more hours. So know that when you come into this. Now, I do want to add to that, though, with what I've learned since then, because I do think that's important. It's important to understand. However, I want to pair that with what I see routinely with small businesses, which is you overcome a deficiency in a business by hard work. And that is not solving the problem. That is not correcting the machine. That's not building a machine. So if the way your business is successful is only by you working 60 hours. So I don't mean it takes 40 hours to be successful and then you work another 20 because you're just feeling froggy and you want to move forward and all this stuff. That's a different thing to me. If it takes more than 40 hours for you personally on a regular basis and for your employees on a regular basis to make the business successful, then your machine is still broken. You may feel successful. You may get out there and have conversations and take awards and all this stuff and get accolades for being the big entrepreneur that's success. But if you can't pull off a business that's successful where your employees are doing 40 hours a week on it, generally speaking, some weeks are going to be higher, obviously, then you haven't actually solved the problem. You're overcoming a flaw in the business by overtaxing people that are giving their time to you, giving their life energy to you. So while I say on one end, like, yeah, you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to control your own hours. So yeah, pick any 70 hours of the week you want to. On the flip side, when I'm talking with agencies that are growing or helping companies scale up, part of what I say with the owners really early on is you have to stop working so much, because you working so hard and you pushing your employees so hard is preventing you from solving your business problems. And 20 years from now, you'll be in the same place because you never actually solved the problem. You just forced people to work harder. You yourself worked harder and your health goes downhill and all these different things. Solve the problem. Focus on the machine itself, the engineering. And so I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, on one end, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to, like, on one end, like, yes, there's freedom. But there's also complete lack of freedom on one end.
I get it.
The additional problem with all of that, Don, is that in order, they won't break free from it because in a lot of organizations, it becomes a badge of honor.
It does.
Especially
yes.
for the person who started the business. This is how I started. This is what I went through. And I had to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week to build this business. You for damn sure have to work 50, 60, 70 hours to maintain my business. And that's the badge of honor, or that's the, that's the rite of passage. And then it becomes part of the culture that you can't overcome. And then you do exactly, I mean, you're talking, it's so true. These companies, they go up and they go down, and they go up and they go down, but they can never make real progress.
Yeah. Yeah. In our industry, so there's a term we just throw around called agency life, where, like, if you're in the agency scene, meaning creative agencies, ad agencies, tech shops, dev companies, software companies that are serving clients and customers and building things for them. In the agency world, we've got what we call agency life, Like, well, that's agency life. And agency life, frankly, for me is, well, it's fucked up, to be honest with you. It's old school, it's inappropriate, and it's abusive. And what I mean by that is that it's considered appropriate and part of the industry. It's considered acceptable. This is changing, thankfully, but to work your employees 60 to 70 hours. I don't want to name any companies here, but there's some very large ad agencies here in our area that control some of the biggest brands in the world, whose literal model is hire young, burn through them. The ones that survive become senior. And they've established some of the biggest brands in the world, this company. And that's the norm, or somewhat the norm in our industry. And for me, it's like, how can you accept that? How can you, as an entrepreneur, my job, I'm an engineer at the end of the day. An entrepreneur is an engineer at the end of the day. The job is, you've got a problem with an audience and you've got a solution you're trying to deliver, and you're engineering that thing, and your staff and the way your staff delivers that is part of that solution. And so if your solution cannot be delivered by legal requirements, then you haven't solved the fucking problem. When I'm dealing with designers want to, especially when they're fresh out of college and they haven't actually experienced the industry yet, they want everything to be idealistic. And they want, like, well, you gave me this thing, I've got 12 hours to do it, and you gave it to me, but I need to do the best I can. So I'm just going to do everything I can, and I might burn 50 hours on this. And on one end, that's great. You want that mentality. You want the designer who does not care about the work or anything like that. It's just about getting the job done. You know, I don't mean care about the work. I mean, they don't care about the effort, the amount of time that you have to put in. They only care about the work. They only care about the output, and they don't care about the amount of time put into it. Well, the thing about a designer or any other creative person is that at the end of the day, you're a problem solver. And a problem is a set of requirements, and the solution meets those requirements and achieves the desired outcome. Well, one of those requirements is budget. And so while I feel that, yes, I want to deliver all this stuff and I want to bust out 60 hours of work on a 10-hour project, that's not a solution. You actually did not solve the problem because you failed to meet one of those requirements. One of those requirements was budget. My folks hear me say all the time, if a client pays for a Volvo, you deliver a Volvo. You deliver the best possible Volvo you can. You have incredible QA, it's white glove, all that stuff, yes. But you do not deliver a Ferrari. They did not pay for a Ferrari, they paid for a Volvo, that's what they get, and that's what they need to get. Best Volvo possible. And you save your emotional energy, your creative energy, and your finances for when the client comes along that wants the Ferrari, then yeah, flex your muscles, do the Ferrari. But I think that's where it's going all the way back to business is, if you are over, it's so easy to overcome our flaws and our inability and the things that we fall short on by just demanding more, and you haven't solved anything. And maybe that's because my mom and stepdad being math teachers that I'm like, no, the equation needs to balance. You're not balancing the equation, and then you're wondering why 10 years later your company's the exact same size. You didn't solve any problem. You didn't build any kind of machine. You just worked people harder.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's unique to your industry at all. And we've talked with our conversation with Dava Mills, who is a recruiting consultant, and she talks about shifting the entire recruiting paradigm, you know, and our conversation comes to mind because we talk about space, you know, and leaving enough space to innovate and enough space to solve problems within your business. And that is a chronic issue throughout our entire economy. In every industry, we are all overworked, from the front lines all the way up through executive leadership. There is no space to solve those problems. And so we just work harder and we work longer. We expect our teams to work harder and work longer with less reward. And I think what's interesting about all of that is that all sort of came to a head the middle of March. And now all of a sudden we're seeing a complete shift in the entire way we work.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had a little space at every level of every organization. We all have space, like it or not. We've been kind of given this space to think about our businesses differently. Now, again, we may revert back and continue down the same path that we started on, but at least for the last 12 weeks, we've at least had a chance to think about our businesses differently. How do we run our businesses differently, more efficiently, reward our employees, give them some time to have some space? And it's just an interesting convergence of sort of this pandemic with what I believe is a massive problem running through our business world, with not having that focus on solving problems other than just to work harder.
Yeah. It's reflected all the way through. It's reflected in the amount of time our parents can spend with our kids, who maybe not being served by education because education has not been adapted for it's like you've got this as the kids and there's this much that it applies to, and it's this mentality of, which again I'm referring to, you know, my own family history, like, yes, quit whining and pull yourself up and just work hard. No one owes you anything. Pull yourself up. 100% agree with almost all that. However, I don't agree with hard work being an excuse for bad choices. And I think that we use hard work as an excuse for bad choices. And your job as a business owner is to create a machine. It's to balance an equation, and then it's to scale that equation. It's not to just burn through people because you can't figure out a better way to do something.
I love that.
Dude,
That's a great line.
That's fantastic. I would be not doing the authentic Bob if I didn't bring up the current situation with the whole Black Lives Matter thing. We had a great panel that our people can listen to, and it was fantastic. And one of the things that we were in it, Joe Sanders, one of the panelists, said, we don't know how many people that we, and Joe is of course African American. He said, we don't know how many people that we have had of color could have done this, could have created this, and could have created that, could have had they could have had, I think the example he used was he could have cured the had the cure for the environmental problems, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's got to be a moment of reflection. And you were in and I'm not trying to make light of it, but you were in a gang, right? And I'm sure there were people of color in the gang. And what would be if you had a classroom and they were all looking at you, and the people of all different races, okay, and all different genders, and they were all looking at you, and you're in front of that classroom, and you had to give just one comment about small business, entrepreneurship, and working hard, what would that be? What would that phrase be? What would you tell that classroom?
Oh my God, what's with you guys? Questions I'm not used to being asked that are tough questions, that are like, yeah, I feel like I would revert back to what I was talking about independence and drive. Here's the thing about gangs for me. We get the bad rap on it. We get the news articles and the TV and all that stuff on gangs. Gangs exist because of people who lack any support and are driven at the same time. It's like the guys I remember back then, and part of why we were doing what we were doing was independence. It was all about independence. And now there's power dynamics, and that's a huge part too. I think that's a huge part of our society, period, is power dynamics. And that comes into play 100%. But the thing is, my experience with gangs is that for the most part, these are people, some of the most, some of the best contributors to society, had we known how to access and leverage and give them an avenue. They don't even need like, oh no, believe in yourself. That's not even the thing. That's already there. They're tired of the bullshit, and they're tired of whatever it is in their life, and they want to make a difference. I'm trying not to cuss as much as I normally do, but you guys know
cuss,
my background.
Cuss, bro, cuss.
They want to make a fucking difference, and they have no other avenue than what's in front of them, and so they take it. I did this. Like, I took this because it was my only access to control and to power and to being able to affect a thing instead of just be affected by a thing. These are tribes of entrepreneurs waiting for our society to take advantage of, waiting for our society to benefit from and to thrive off of. So for me, if I was talking to those students, I would say something along the lines of the structure of your world. The structure of your world is the canvas that you have to deal with, and you just have nothing you can do with that. That's just what it is. That's your canvas. That's what you've got to work with. But the fact that you really give a shit and that you're pissed off says that you have some fortitude to make a way for yourself. And you don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be this, but you can make a way, and you can take a stance, and you can define your own way in the world. And you do not have to follow any of these paths. You can make your own path, but you have to put people first, and you have to give a shit about people, and then do what you're going to do. Maybe that's what I'd say.
I mean, this whole, oh my God,
Bro,
this whole last 3 months has been so, it's not coincidence that the pandemic and the upheaval around racial inequality have converged. Like, this is not coincidence.
Yeah.
And time again, it continues to come back to people. It comes back to human connection. You know, when we lost it, when we were quarantined in this pandemic, what did we miss? We missed human connection. We missed going and cheersing at our local bar. We missed our kids being able to spend time with their friends at school. It's human connection. And we talk about racial inequality, and we talk about protests. You know, it's about the people.
Yes.
And I love what you said there. Give a shit about people. And when you give a shit about people and you try to understand from somebody else's point of view, stop making it about yourself. Start making it about the other person's experience, and give a shit about their experience and what they're going through. And when you do that, great things can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's like, actually, when I met the staff, one of the things that has become a thing now, because I said this in the very first, when I first met the staff, the very first thing that I said, we had a whole, we went out and we had beers and all this stuff, but the very first delivery that I gave talked about giving a shit, and it resonated with all of them to the point where That's like a thing that we say in the company now, is just give a shit. And for me, it's like, if you give a shit and you focus on the problem and you solve that, between the two of those, like, how are we not winning every time in every angle? Give a shit about people and then solve the problem. And what I was talking about overworking people and stuff, it's us continually, what we're talking about with Black Lives Matter and why we're still here is people continuing to kick the problem down the street instead of solving the fucking thing. And that's what we see in businesses over and over. And that's why businesses flounder. That's why they can't scale. It's why social problems don't get solved. Like, solve the problem. Don't just get caught up. The emotion needs to happen. Absolutely. The expression 100% needs to happen, but solve the fucking problem and then move to the next step. And I feel like that's if there was anything I teach anybody, staff or anyone else, it's like, if you're handed this thing on your plate and this is the thing you need to take care of, dig into that shit and solve that shit as deeply and as comprehensively and as best as you can, and then open yourself up to collaboration and let some other people make this better with you. Be open and collaborative stuff, but focus on that. Your own need to validate yourself or to feel better about a thing by expressing X, Y, and Z, more power to you. But I 100% guarantee that if you do all that and you solve the problem in front of you, or you don't do any of that and you solve the problem in front of you, you will find not only empowerment in your life and you'll move forward quicker and faster and better, but you'll make differences in the world around you, whether it's just your own office and it's the people around you, or whether it's like the grand scheme of things, whether you're impacting racial justice or social justice and racial oppression. It does come down to, like, balance the equation and then figure out what to do next, figure out how to scale it next, figure out how to make it better next.
Wow. Yeah.
Man. Don, I mean,
if you don't give a shit about an employee or a vendor or, just anybody you're in business with, generally you're probably not going to be successful. That right there, that's all I can say. If you don't give a shit about somebody, you can't form a relationship. And if you can't form a relationship when you're in business, especially as a small business, you're not going to go anywhere.
And what's the point too? Like, you got to live with yourself. You got to go to sleep at night. When you're 70, 80, 90 years old and you're looking back, like, what do you want to look back on? When we're talking about the Black Lives, if you don't mind me just kind of going into on a more personal level with this, with police brutality and racism in general in our country, it's if you don't recognize and admit the problem and be willing to dissect. So here's the thing about the creative process. This step one is not come up with a solution. Step one is ask a whole lot of questions. It's understand what's happening. It's listen and dig in and understand what's happening. And then you work on a solution. And when you work on the solution, it's a combination of individuals coming up with a great idea and funneling around and doing this, and then collaborating and refining it. And sometimes the darlings get killed. Sometimes things get thrown out, and sometimes things go deeper. But the point being is that if our focus is on our own emotional satiation, our own emotional catharsis, when do we expect the problem to be solved? It's never been solved. And why? Because even right now, so part of what's exciting about this to me right now, and what I've heard from folks in the community in general and stuff, is that we're seeing a swell of white activity and white rage and white engagement that is fairly unique to what we've seen in the past. And that does make me hopeful, and I'm happy for that, and I want to push that as much as possible. But if it stays focused on catharsis, if it stays focused on, I need to say this so that I feel that I'm saying something appropriate, so I feel better about myself for taking a stance. Maybe I'm going to donate, maybe I even protest or whatever, but it's there to make it so that I feel a little bit better about what I have or have not done, instead of like, fuck my catharsis. And maybe this is the Midwest part of me. Maybe this is the, you know, the Norwegian, Scottish side of me. I like quit whining. But the catharsis is like, it's virtually worthless to me. Like, what does catharsis get us? Ever, anywhere? If you can get past that and pull your emotion out and look objectively and let the emotion be the indicators that you need, but let's focus on problems and find solutions. My staff, what they're used to with me is, in any meeting, it always comes down to who owns the thing that's going to happen next. There's 3 things that are going to happen next. Who owns those 3 things? Who are the 3 different people that own it? And then what's the next step? It's coming back with the plan. That's one of the things that a lot of people miss, is that one step of first make the plan. And so with my staff saying like we're reevaluating all of our products and offerings, with me coming on board, I wanted to reevaluate all this. And so we got multiple teams going on and reevaluating and looking at all this. And for me, it's what product or offering it gets us to where we need to be, aligns with our values, and achieves all these things. I'm not asking you how you emotionally feel about user experience design or SEO or content or any other thing. I'm saying mechanically, how does it go from here to here? Now we've solved the problem. Now we can introduce the art within this. And that's where you've got the art and the science, or the mechanics and the expression, the qualitative versus the quantitative or whatever. But now we've got an actual solution. It's a baseline. It may not be the perfect solution, but something that's solid, that's quantitative, that we can look at. And now we can measure against it. We can see we exceeded here. In fact, this was way better. And then this was way worse. And this was way better. And we can measure against that. And we can gradually, incrementally improve. Is what you do in science, is what you do in math, it's what you do in any kind of sophisticated engineering. Why can't we do that with social problems? Why can't we look at this or creative? Because we're in the creative industry, so we're dealing with this subjective shit. Why can't we look at these as like, first solve the mechanics, and then we'll figure out the art on top of that? And I feel like right now, all of that's happening. Right now, frankly, all of it needs to happen. Like, whatever, just throw all the spaghetti at the wall right now, frankly, in my opinion. Just throw it all at the wall. But if this movement is going to last, and it needs to last, because this does not change easily. This is systemic in our society. This is going to take years and years and years and years to change. It's been 400 years and we haven't evolved that much. It's going to take many years to change.
Were you eavesdropping on our conversation last night?
No.
Keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had you are just on point. Go ahead. Continue. Keep going, brother.
It's like, get the mechanics down. Then let's figure out the nuances and all these other things on top. But there's some mechanical problems with this engine that have always been there. It's not even correcting what was off. Like, this was never correct. But as long as we continue to focus just on catharsis and emotion, which is a huge important part. I'm talking about creativity and science. I'm talking about art and science and emotion and raw mechanics. If you cannot solve the mechanical problem, the emotional problem is always going to stay fickle. It's going to ebb and flow. The moment there's people already, I'm tired of it already. And I really give a shit about this. I'm investing and doing all these things and putting in hours and hours and hours of this. And I personally have a history, time, like all this emotion, and none of it matters if I don't create a mechanism to do something about it. If I don't contribute to a mechanism to do something about this long term. If this was a short-term thing, if this was an election thing, different story.
Correct.
We're
Thank
not
you.
talking about that.
Thank you. Brother, I love you, man. Don, I love you, brother.
Cheers.
Get that guy another chocolate stout.
Jeez. I got nothing to add, Kaler. Sorry.
No, I mean, geez, I think that is as good a place to end as any. I mean, I think we didn't get to half of the stuff that I wanted to talk about.
It was brutal.
But I love what you're all about. I mean, I feel really fortunate to have had the opportunity to meet you. We've had the opportunity to have a couple of conversations outside of this, and and I feel like you and I have a similar view of the world and a similar view of how we approach things, and I really appreciate that about you, and I think you've shown that in this interview today, and it's just been really enlightening, and love what you're all about, and I hope that it doesn't end here. I hope that we can go after and solve some of these problems, but for now, Ben, it's time.
So, Don, every episode, besides the Angie's Mystery Beer, which is delicious, we ask our guests one final question. Canope, are you ready?
No, I'm not ready.
Perfect.
I'm not ready.
I won't do that to you.
Okay.
Don, you talked about your GED, getting your GED, getting your diploma, your high school diploma. You have 4 people in your front row that you can invite. It could be dead or living. Who are those 4 people?
I don't understand why you guys didn't send this to me beforehand.
It's the final question,
cool.
man.
Because it's the final question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know it's just very stereotypical, but I really do want Martin Luther King there. And timing of this and all, but I've always said this in my entire life. Anything I do, there is a degree, for me personally, of what Martin Luther King thinks. But I feel like that's almost a cop-out answer, especially right now. But
That's why Ben gave you 4.
I gave you 4.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna give 1 cop-out and then 3 non-cop-outs.
Yeah.
And I'll be there, so you only have to come up with 2 more, because I would love to come to that. No, I'm not invited. All right, 3 more.
Okay, so okay, I would say it's like there's like I could spout off a dozen probably off the cuff, but
you only got 4.
Is the part.
Where did 4 come from? You've never asked for 4.
There's only 3 left.
Well, whatever.
I don't know, you're a weirdo, Ben.
Okay. And I'm not necessarily having a conversation. Am I having one-on-one conversation?
You are getting your acceptance. You're getting your diploma, but you get to invite 4 people
to sit
sit
front
in
row to watch you get your
diploma.
You know what? Honestly, let me scratch Martin Luther King.
Oh, all right.
Actually,
All right, hold on.
Hold on, I wrote it down.
If he wants to be there, 100% support him. But I also feel like this is a waste of his time. If he came back to life, like he's got other things to do. Hey, this is my invitation to Martin Luther King. Hey, you have no idea the level of respect I have for you and the way you've influenced my life. And I'd really love to for you to show up at my graduation. However, I feel like this is a colossal waste of at least 60 minutes of your life And there's only so many minutes in your life, and god damn, there's got to be something better for you to do than show up at this shit. But you're welcome to.
Who are the four, Don? Jeez.
Okay.
Come on, man.
Mom.
Of course.
She needs to
Yes.
see this. Actually, Grandma too, because Grandma's hugely disappointed, and she's only got, you know, we've all got our duration.
Mhm.
So I want her there too.
And Kaler and Martin Luther King. That's it. There you go. You got that's perfect.
Come on, let him finish.
Dude, I'm hanging out with Mom and Grandma, and then there's two. All right, go ahead. Two more.
I've got a teacher named Miss Davis in 4th grade who is the reason I went. So this was the beginning of what we called my entrepreneur streak before. Conveniently, it's also my streak of just like not giving a shit and being rebellious. But 4th grade was the first year where you had like grades. And my very first quarter or semester or whatever it was 2.1. And my mom was like, oh my God, you can't. And my next semester, the very next thing was 4.0. So I jumped all the way up to the top. And it had to do with Miss Davis digging into me writing and being creative. And she saw my creativity and she gave it direction and she focused it and she gave it purpose. And so I jumped on that. And I would love for, I don't know if she even remembers who I am. I would love for her to sit there she's probably 60 something now, I'm sure, and say, wow, that kid for 25 years, I've made not just an influence, but like a life-changing influence. I am who I am and what I'm doing right now because she took a little bit of time digging into the fact that I was creative and driven and didn't fit the normal paradigms because I got bored really quick.
Well, it is for sure that we all love you for different reasons. You're like you're half Beatnik, half Steve Jobs, half Rod Serling, because I feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone. But I'm so glad you came on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation. If people want to find out more about you and your business, please let people know where they can find you guys.
Hit up gravitatedesign.com and we figure out anything from there. I'll be honest, I'm not super active on social media. I do my best. There's other people that are younger and better at it than keeping up with me, but if you go to the website, we're there.
Awesome.
Nope.
Yes, sir.
If people want to find business over beer, where do they go?
They go to bizoverbeer.com, B-I-Z overbeer.com. They can find our social media handles there. They can find our podcasts there, audio and video, and some great bios about the three of us, about our fantastic guests, and everything they need to know. Right there, bizoverbeer.com.
Don, look, man, I love you, brother. And I know that this is going to be an ongoing episodic. You are going to be on this for a while because this is going to be the Terror of Power's terror to edit.
Yeah, sorry. And yeah, let's do it.
So don't be surprised if you have your episode in October.
Yeah, I'm thinking Mortal Kombat Challenge.
Oh my gosh.
Does Lewitt have Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter?
They do. They have a Mortal Kombat. I don't know if they have Street Fighter.
What are the odds we could get Marshawn Lynch on there with us?
I don't know.
Gronkowski.
So
Hey,
Don,
it's not.
you are the
it isn't worse than Shields, so it's going to be fine.
That's a good point. Don, you are the reason why I want Phase 3 to happen sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, man.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, Kaler, Knope, people listening eventually, people watching really eventually. Thank you so much. We will see you all next time.
Good night.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer.
Action being the enemy of good right now. I think perfect is overrated right now.
Well, if perfection is the enemy of good, then talk about wheelhouse.
You guys are good.
I mean, we are killing it then.
Everyone, us.
The imperfect party. It's a thing. Check it out.